I will call this evening's regular town board meeting to order for September 10th. The time is 7:05 p.m. Ms. Eicher, will you please take roll call?
Mayor Christy Melendez.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Ken Bennett.
Here.
Miles Baker.
Here.
Barry Wilson.
Here.
Paul Rennemeyer.
Here.
Tom Jones.
Here.
David Staslawski.
Okay. This evening, I'm going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. But before we do that, I wanted to just make a note. We had a very tragic accident that happened in our community this week. I want to thank all of our community responders. I want to thank everybody in the community who reached out. And tonight, I'm going to ask for a moment of silence after the Pledge of Allegiance in memory of Bryson Zerbe, but not for his life lost, but for his life lived. I did not know Bryson or his family, but by all accounts, for an 8-year-old boy, he certainly had his priorities in order: God, family, and his friends. He had a zest and love for life, and let his love for life and how he brought so many people together in this last week be the memory we hold for him and for his family. This board, this town, will always remember last week. But my hope is that out of a terrible tragedy comes some good. As we hugged and came together because of one very, very special little boy, let us move forward in his light, taking nothing for granted, but appreciating each and every day and one another. And now, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And on our agenda this evening, first item would be review of agenda by the board and addition of items of new business to the agenda for consideration by the board. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion on the floor from Mr. Rennemeyer with a second from Mr. Baker, approving the agenda in the packet as presented. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. And the agenda is approved as presented. Moving on to item 4, we have a plaque presentation. Do we have, I know we don't have Kenton Bruner with us this evening, but I believe we do have Mr. Jack Goodell. Will you please come forward? Tonight, we're honoring with a plaque, we should be honoring two long-term water and sewer board members, Mr. Jack Goodell, who is with us this evening, and Kenton Bruner, who cannot be with us. They recently have decided to hand over their responsibilities. Jack Goodell was appointed to the Water and Sewer Board in January 1993. As the owner of Goodell Machinery and Equipment, Jack brought a lot of knowledge related to water, sewer, and drainage infrastructure to the board for 25 years, including 22 years as the vice chairman. Kenton Bruner was born and raised in Windsor and farmed many of the acres around Windsor that have since been developed. He has a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Finance from CSU. He was appointed to the Water and Sewer Board in November 1981 and served more than 36 years, including 22 consecutive years as chairman. In addition to the Water and Sewer Board, Kenton has served on the board of directors for the Kern Reservoir and Ditch Company, the Cache La Poudre Irrigation and Reservoir Company, and the Northern Colorado Water Conservancy District. As mentioned, Jack has been vice chair and Kenton chair for 22 years. They were elected to these positions on April 11, 1996, and served in those roles every year since. The Water and Sewer Board has been meeting at 6:30 a.m. since August 1995. And it is because of volunteers and citizens like Mr. Goodell and Mr. Bruner that make our town, I think, such a special place. So thank you very much for your years of service, and we wish you all the best. Our next item this evening is a proclamation for Cities and Towns Week. Whereas municipal government is the level of government closest to most citizens and the one with the most direct daily impact upon residents. And whereas municipal government is administered for and by the people and is dependent upon public commitment to and understanding of its many responsibilities. And whereas municipal government officials and employees share the responsibility to pass along their understanding of public services and their benefits. And whereas the Colorado Municipal League's member cities and towns have joined together to recognize the important role played by municipal government in our daily lives. And whereas Colorado Cities and Towns Week offers an opportunity to convey to all Colorado residents that they can shape and influence government through their civic involvement. Now therefore, be it resolved by the Windsor Town Board that September 10th through the 16th, 2018 is recognized as Colorado Cities and Towns Week in the town of Windsor, Colorado. You might want to check our website. We have a whole week of, I know, activities planned, different things reaching out to our kids. Wednesday, we're having a special event. Would like to invite you all here to Town Hall from, is it 6 to 8 p.m. We're going to do tours of the Town Hall, and the Town Board will be on hand to talk to anybody who would like to speak with one of your elected officials as well. So
Mayor, it's 6 to 7:30 Town Hall.
6 to 7?
Yeah, 6 to 7:30, yes.
Okay, here at Town Hall this Wednesday. Moving on then to item 6 is board liaison reports. Town Board Member Baker, Tree Board and Historic Preservation Commission.
Thank you. Nothing for historic preservation. The tree board met on August 28th at the Recreation Center, and it is a lively and passionate group. They love their trees. That was exciting. There's discussion of adding a tree board member to the pre-cab. That was discussed, but no decision was made on that. There was also a little discussion about the landscape standards that we reviewed at our work session this evening. The tree board is also planning a park audit on September 25th at the Windsor Highland Park up in Highland Meadows. And they're also planning a landscape boot camp for early next year where homeowners can come learn about plants that work in our environment up here in Northern Colorado. So look forward to that. That's it.
Okay. Town Board Member Wilson, Parks, Recreation, and Culture Advisory Board, Poudre River Trail Corridor Board.
For Parks, Recreation, and Culture, just thank you for Eric and his staff for all the hard work with the Harvest Festival. And we have our board meeting tomorrow night, so I'll have a report next week for that. For the Poudre River Trail corridor, a couple things. It has been communicated via press release, but a section of the trail east of 257, about a 2-mile stretch, will be closed starting September 23rd for repair of some of it that was washed out. It'll be closed for approximately 2 months. Signage is already up, and like I said, there has been a press release. And then there's a fundraiser this week on Wednesday, September 12th at Island Grove and Greeley. We have the Party for the Poudre, which is a fundraiser for the Poudre River Trail. And that's from 5:30 to 7:30. If you're interested in tickets, I have them here. You can hit me after the meeting. Thank you.
Okay. Town Board Member Bennett, Water and Sewer Board.
No report, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Town Board Member Rennemeyer, Chamber of Commerce.
No report.
Town Board Member Jones, Windsor Housing Authority and Great Western Trail.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Councilman Bennett graciously attended the Windsor Housing Authority meeting for me last month, and I believe he reported at the last meeting what happened there. As far as the Great Western Trail Authority, the authority has applied for 2 grants. One is a Colorado the Beautiful grant through Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and another is the Colorado Youth Conservation Corps grant through GOCO. And we are hoping, if we are awarded either or both of these, to put that money toward completing the trail between Severance and Eden. And that's all I have.
Okay?
Can I add something?
Yep, absolutely.
I wanted to mention to the public as a whole, the week before the tragedy last week, so 2 weeks ago, Generations Church, who the Zerbe family belongs to, just joined the Chamber of Commerce in Windsor. They're getting ready to open their Windsor campus, I believe another week and a half from now, on Sunday evening. But tomorrow night, the public is welcome. They're having a open house ribbon cutting up at the, it's at the, their grand opening is on September 23rd at 6 p.m. That's when they're having special artists and speakers. But tomorrow night, the public as a whole is welcome to come. It's at 6 p.m. at their new campus, which is north of town at County Road 72 and Highway 257, which is the current Journey Church building that they're going to be sharing. And in light of the recent events, I know that it would mean a lot to them the more the public could show up to support them with their church launch. So
Okay.
6 p.m. tomorrow night.
Okay. And I have the MPO and the Downtown Development Authority. Downtown Development Authority doesn't meet again until the 19th. However, the Front Range MPO did meet on September 6th in LaSalle. I'll try to keep it short. The biggest surprising, the best news today was today we had a groundbreaking for the I-25 project and kicked that off. And of course, Windsor is the first piece of that corridor from 402. Right there is where they're going to be able to start that construction. So a long-awaited project, thanks to all the many partners who collaborated to make that project happen. Together, we turned a project that was not scheduled to happen for at least another 15 to 20 years to bring that to light, and it's going to happen, and it's going to get done in the next 2 to 3 years. So that was a good day because it will increase safety, it will increase efficiencies along I-25, and so a lot of good things about that. We had, a lot of us were there this morning at the groundbreaking. We also discussed in detail the ballot initiatives, 153 and of course 167, which now 153 is going to turn into Proposition 110. 167 is turning into Proposition 109. The difference between those is Proposition 110 is the sales tax increase. Proposition 109 is the Caldera Fix Our Roads. So we had a very deep analysis of that. The one thing that I would like to comment on, that if the ballot initiative for Proposition 110, which is the sales tax initiative, if that were to pass, and I'm just talking about Windsor, but it affects all the other communities in that same way, it would lend itself to Windsor's coffers for additional transportation, road infrastructure dollars around almost $24 million in a 20-year period. Those are additional dollars that Windsor would be able to have to be able to do some kind of road improvements and/or maintenance, and those are just initial forecasts. The money could be much higher. So I don't know where our folks are standing on that issue, but do know that we are in need of figuring out a long-term solution to our roadway and our infrastructure problems, not only in our town, but in our state. So this would be significant dollars to Windsor. So we talked about those. We also got a very nice report from Larimer County on their infrastructure and their funding strategies. And actually, while county asked for a copy of this and wants to use it as a model as they continue to look at what they are doing in terms of funding for their infrastructure. And we also looked at a call for projects. So just make note, there are some changes happening to the eligibility for call for projects for the 22-23 area. And I just kind of want our folks to know, I want to have a conversation about hopefully some call for project opportunities that perhaps Windsor can bring to light. And perhaps get lucky enough to get some dollars, because what's going to be happening now is anything that is shovel ready and ready to go will get first priority when those dollars, if those dollars do happen to come in and come to light. As a matter of fact, the MPO board did pass a resolution for that endorsed. At the time, if ballot initiative 167 were to pass, this is not the sales tax initiative, but it is the other tax initiative that already has identified 15 projects that would be identified as to what would be where those dollars would be allocated. And the MPO passed a resolution because we wanted to endorse that our priorities for this region would be the I-25 North, State Highway 7 to State Highway 14, and the US 4, US 34, US 85 interchange reconfiguration. So we passed a resolution to confirm that. And other than that, I will conclude my report for this evening. Moving on to item 7 is our public invited to be heard. This is for individuals wishing to participate on a non-agenda item. I know we have somebody who signed up, but I believe you want to speak on an agenda item, or did you want to speak to us on a non-agenda item, Dr. Bradley?
I don't know whether it's on that agenda or not. So I didn't come up to speak on an agenda item.
You did not come to speak on an agenda item?
No.
Okay, well then this would be your opportunity to come forward, and we're going to give you your 3 minutes at the podium to speak before us this evening. Please state your name and address for the record.
Wendell
before you
Bradley,
begin.
608 Meadow Drive. The radioactive concentration in oil and gas production waste, like sludge and scale, can be 10,000 to 100,000 times the level considered safe. Such contamination can pose a serious threat for thousands of years. Such waste is said to be mere pickle water or brine by the oil companies. It's been spread on Windsor area roads and fields, and it's been dumped into an Aldergott well pit storage area now slated for town development as a playground. That's out near the recycling center. In addition to the known radioactive threat, oil and gas waste contain extreme toxins, benzene, arsenic, lead, among others. I personally have witnessed a white material, almost certainly arsenic, oozing from that Aldergott pit in the proposed town play area. The Gas Commission uses a testing protocol on such waste that is known by them to be scientifically discredited, and one that underestimates radioactivity by factors of 1,000. Since the town has been warned several times of its negligence on these issues, it is liable for expected damages and subject to lawsuits. I expect the Aldergott well, which was plugged in 1990, plugged and abandoned. I expect it's already leaking, as about 50% of those kind of wells do leak after 20 years.
Okay. Is there anybody else who wanted to speak to the board on a non-agenda item? This is your opportunity. Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to our item B this evening, which is the consent calendar. The consent calendar consists of 3 items this evening: the minutes of the August 27, 2018 regular meeting, report of the bills for August 28, and resolution 2018-87. Is there a motion on the floor?
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Second.
A motion on the floor from Mr. Redemeyer with a second from Mr. Wilson approving the consent calendar as presented. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. And it passes unanimously and is approved as presented. Moving on to item C, our board action this evening. First item this evening is resolution number 2018-84, a resolution approving an agreement for cooperative development and use of Diamond Valley property between the Town of Windsor and Colorado National Sports Park, LLC. Legislative action, Mr. Hale will give presentation. Mr. Hale.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Windsor Town Board. I am pleased to present a public-private agreement for the board's consideration this evening. As proposed, this agreement will transfer ownership of the Diamond Valley Park to Colorado National Sports Park. In return, the town will have perpetual use of the property for recreational programming. This includes 3 baseball fields and 2 multi-use fields referred to in the agreement as Phase 1 improvements. If these improvements aren't completed by March 2020, the title of the property reverts back to the town. Beginning in 2020, the town will be granted additional access as needed to the yet-to-be constructed public facilities. Also starting in 2020, Colorado National Sports Park will take on all maintenance on this site. The cost of the town has been established in Exhibit D, which also addresses the cost to the town to add use of additional facilities as they get built out. Other highlights of the agreements include the town and the sports park will cooperatively master plan the development. The sports park is required to keep youth athletic activity on the parcel for a minimum of 20 years. Failing to do so would result in the title reverting back to the town. Following this 20-year period, the sports park must give the town 36 months' notice if it intends to cease operations, and the town will then have 6 months to determine if it wants to purchase the property back. As to the financial impacts, the town had intended to construct a $4.1 million multi-sports field in 2019 on this site. There are now 2 slated to be constructed by the sports park by March 2020. The 2009 master plan anticipated a total development cost of $19.2 million, and that's not adjusted for inflation. Thus far, we've spent $4.4 million. So the remaining improvements would be the $15 million plus that the town would need to do in this park if we continue to operate it. This site also has ample utilities, so there's no cost to the town to make it ready for this use. The town's gift of land will be the economic development incentive for this project, so the community won't be asked to share back any property or sales taxes to develop commercial uses on these 100 acres. Finally, as AstroTurf has far lower maintenance costs than grass, the town will enjoy lower maintenance costs under this agreement. Just to orientate you on your packet, the resolution is on page 100. The agreement with exhibits are pages 102 through 116, and the ordinance is on page 117. I do want to take a moment to thank kind of the team that helped put this together. Parks and Rec Director Eric Lucas, Economic Development Director Stacy Miller, and of course our venerable town attorney Ian McCarter. So thanks to them. Between the 3 of them and I, staff is ready to answer any questions that the board may have. And then following those, staff does recommend approval of Resolution 2018-84 and Ordinance 2018-1570.
Okay. I know we have the park applicant here this evening. Did you want to add anything to this evening? Okay. Are there any questions or comments for Mr. Hale? Mr. Baker?
I have some questions. In regards to any availability for the fields after phase one, should there be a phase two and our recreation requires 5 baseball fields, is there anything in this agreement to that effect?
We talked about getting together and working through a master schedule and scheduling with them. Again, our Parks and Rec Director, Eric Lucas, who I don't want to put words in his mouth, who's back there, but he's met with the park representatives, and I think that it looks like with the tournament schedule versus our uses, it seems like we would continue to be able to enjoy the use of these fields. And basically how this agreement is written is the town has priority use, and so the park has its schedule, they have its tournaments that come through. The town basically has a chance to fill in the blanks anywhere else in the schedule. And after the park has set up its tournament schedule, the town has set all of its recreational programming. At that point, they may bring in third parties, you know, it could be other cities and towns or other tournaments that aren't really through either of our entities.
And that's future fields beyond phase
Yes.
one?
That's right.
Okay. And I know that the residents will get free admission for recreation programming. That's
Right, yeah,
stated in
our
there.
annual maintenance cost is the only fee for the recreational programming. So there's no gate charges, there's no parking charges. If it's Windsor Little League and we have baseball there, the town is paying those costs through our maintenance fees, and residents wouldn't pay anything more for that use.
And will residents be able to bring in their own beverages during like, if I want to bring in my bottle of water for?
I think that's a park policy. I don't know if the sports park, we have not talked that level of detail with them.
Okay, and what if the CNSP sells parcels of the land? How does that work when, if it were to come back to us? Would we not get those pieces, or how does that work?
The transfer of smaller parcels within the park property would be subject to the reversion clause that's in the deed that you're talking about. So those buyers, if you will, would take title subject to the town's reversionary rights for that 20-year period. And so in theory, yeah, if the sports park decided to close down operations and trigger the clawback of the land comes back to us, and the improvements that are made by third parties are on our land at that point.
Okay. I have some questions for Mr. Lucas. Sorry. So with the construction of phase one, how many lacrosse, soccer field, and football fields are we actually getting?
We were intending on building one 600 by 600 field, which would put in approximately 4 adult soccer fields or 16 youth smaller fields. They will be building 2 of those, so double that number.
Okay, and we're gonna save $4.1 million.
Correct.
In the past, we've rented out these baseball fields to different tournaments. We'll no longer do that, I assume?
If we are hosting the tournament, we have the ability to do that for tournaments that we are running. That will be a choice that staff will have to make in terms of how many we choose to run in the future.
And then we've recently reviewed our Parks Master Plan, and I think we had a shortfall to build all the parks that we hope to build or were required to build. This will go a long way in solving that problem, I assume.
Absolutely. So the build out for Diamond Valley was about $14 million more, counting the 4.1 that we would not spend in 19. That goes to the deficit, and I'm going to probably get the number wrong, but somewhere around the lines of 32 to 35 million in terms of build out. So we would not have to build out that 14 million. We could use those funds as we accrue them to build out other parks, such as Takankala, the LeBouf Park property, Eastman Park South, those facilities.
Okay, and can you explain how you envision us using those fields? We have a Monday through Friday, is that?
I envision us using, most of our play is Monday through Friday. We do have some soccer Saturdays. We would just coordinate with the sports park group in terms of their use and our use. I think the big savings here is it allows us the ability to continue to grow our programs. We as we sit today, we're literally turning kids away from soccer. We can't keep up with the demand of people in the fields that we lack. So this will enable us to continue to grow our programs, as well as by taking some soccer kids off of Eastman Park and putting them on these fields can give Eastman Park a break. We literally are just pounding the grass and the turf and the dirt into the ground, no pun intended, because we can't give our fields a break, which is what you should be doing. That's typically the standard practice in the industry, is to give them a break. So by playing on these new fields, which will be synthetic turf, that enables less maintenance and also gives our other parks a break or use for some other program or event.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I had a question.
Eric, before you run.
Okay, oh, well, just a minute, Mr. Baker, I think, has one
That's fine.
follow-up.
No, no
question.
more for Eric.
Oh, no more questions?
No, not for Mr. Lucas.
Oh, okay, go ahead, Dr.
Oh,
Jones.
Okay, well, with the original proposal north of town, we heard anywhere from 22 baseball fields to 65 baseball fields. What are we looking at in this initial stage out here in Diamond Valley for, over the next, say, 2 or 3 years?
Probably let the developer answer that question. What they would do, as the manager just explained, the 3 current fields stay and continue to exist. They would build an initial 2 600 by 600 multi-purpose fields that would house baseball, soccer, football, lacrosse type sports. Beyond that, that is up to the developer in terms of how much they would build out towards the number that you had talked about.
Okay,
the other
so
location.
for the 2 600 fields
Mhm.
that you're speaking of, there's room for 3 baseball fields on there?
There's room for 4 small fields, one of each. So think of it as a square. There'd be a baseball field in each corner, and then inside of those squares, you can play multiple different types of sports: soccer, football, lacrosse.
Okay, I see. All right, thank you.
Any additional questions from Mr. Lucas before we run? Okay, back to, do you have a question for Mr. Hale?
For
Or
the
for
developer, I
applicant- For
think.
the applicant? Would-
Yeah, the applicant.
Would the applicant please come forward, or whoever the applicant's representative wants to be this evening?
All right, thank you.
Will you please, just for the record, state your name and address? State your name and address.
Stephen Chasteen, 7775 County Road 74, Windsor, Colorado, 80550.
Thank you. In the application, there's a pro forma that had a hotel and restaurant, and there was obviously tax revenue to the town. When do you see that being started? It said year 1, but I don't think it's going to start in year 1 for the hotel. When would year 1 be for the hotel and restaurant?
2020.
Oh, very soon.
Yep.
Great. And my last question is traffic. Obviously, that's going to be the big one. Can you talk about the flow of your events? I know your previous plan was people came in for a week and they kind of stayed there and they practiced and then played. Is that still the plan? Are you anticipating just daily traffic coming and going, or are they still coming in and camping there?
So in general, yes. With the rec portion of this, as the tournaments wind down through the week, we have less teams. So we start with 100 teams.
Right.
At the end, there's only one champion. So all through the week, you lose teams. And as we lose teams, fields open up, and then Eric and the rec department would be able to utilize those teams. So possibly the Windsor rec traffic flow would come in, but we are still planning on the stay and play aspect for our business model, besides what the community comes in to use around for the recreation, the commercial, retail that's gonna be around that, correct?
So it's just not going to be daily thousands of cars coming through. They're going to.
From a retail standpoint, I hope so.
From a,
To be honest,
from a baseball standpoint, that's it. From the-
No, not from not from
Sports.
what we are planning, no, that's
Okay.
correct.
Thank
Correct.
you.
But, yeah.
Well, and Stephen, if I may, so as I understand it, that these teams are coming over like on Sunday, so it's buses of kids coming over on a Sunday, and then like he explained, is these teams get eliminated, these buses are leaving through the week, so the impact should be fairly minimal, I mean, really to the town for traffic.
Yeah, and I know we've gotten complaints from the businesses about the charter school. Now, you're going to be playing in the summer mostly when the school's out of session, so that hopefully won't be a problem with the schools.
Correct. Our core time is Labor Day, or Memorial Day through Labor Day.
Right.
So,
And then Mr. Chastain and I are meeting with the charter school this Friday.
Okay.
Because we did want to reach out and just hear what concerns they have. You know, obviously they have a lot of kids there, and they're going to want to know what's going on, so we want to hear them out and make sure we just address anything up front.
Thank you.
Okay. Any additional questions? Questions or comments? Well then, I think I need to seek a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve resolution number 2018-84.
Second.
Motion on the floor from Mr. Bennett and a second from Mr. Rennemeyer approving resolution 2018-84. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. And the resolution passes unanimously. Moving on to item 2, ordinance number 2018-1570. An ordinance approving the transfer of real property from the town of Windsor to Colorado National Sports Park LLC. Again, legislative action. Anything to add, Mr. Hale?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from my fellow board? Mr. Baker?
Just one comment, we've talked about it so much, but traffic, I think we need to be proactive on that. Yeah. The good news is they're phasing in their building. I think that's gonna give us time to get ahead of the traffic, so I don't need to tell you guys that, but I guess I want to make it public.
You're right, Mr. Baker, and I'll tell you that the mayor and I already discussed, I mean, really the need having this project accessing from 257, you know, it really gives us the opportunity to talk to CDOT and say, look, we've got a marquee project here, it's accessing up the highway, and hopefully it gets a little bit more political traction and we get some funding from CDOT sooner than later. So you're right, and we're all aware of it, but I think we're also aware that, you know, traffic in Windsor's a mess. It's a mess without this project. It's just, people are here and they're coming through. So I'm hoping that this gives us the kind of straw that breaks the camel's back.
And even coming from the
I
east.
cornered the CDOT regional director this morning at the I-25 groundbreaking and told him to be prepared that Windsor was coming at him with a project and a need for some improvements on 257. This project, will they have to do a road impact fee study?
They will.
So they will have to complete that study as well, so.
And we need to look at coming from the east as well. So not just 257, I assume there's gonna be a lot coming from.
Right, I mean, yeah, they'll go through, so from a land use standpoint, and I think Scott's here, but they'll have to do basically a master plan. They'll need to do a subdivision process, and then they'll do different site plan areas as they develop through. So that's basically the land use, but as a part of that, just our normal process, they'll need to do a traffic impact analysis as well.
Right.
Any additional questions or comments? Before we take the vote, I'm just going to say I'm going to vote in favor of this ordinance. I think it truly is a win-win situation for the town of Windsor, and it is the kind of economic development that we have not had the opportunity to capture to date, and I think this is that kind of opportunity that every community only gets once in their lifetime. And so I think we are fortunate that we've had these folks, this project, continue to stick by us and to make their home and want to have their home in Windsor. So with that, I would seek a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve ordinance number 2018-1570.
A second.
Motion on the floor from Mr. Rennemeyer with a second from Mr. Wilson to approve ordinance 2018-1570. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. And the ordinance passes unanimously. Moving on to item 3, resolution number 2018-85. A resolution approving and adopting revised design criteria and construction specifications, divisions, and streets. Legislative action, Mr. Hornbeck will give presentation.
Thank you, Mayor and Board. The Division 1 of the town's design criteria and construction specifications, henceforth referred to as specifications, include criteria and design standards for all streets within Windsor. The current specifications were adopted in 2009 by resolution and were last amended in 2014. The 2009 resolution authorized the Director of Engineering to make minor amendments or modifications. Major modifications were require town board action. Staff has prepared a number of those major reservation amendments for your consideration. There are four primary goals behind these changes. Number one is implementing the Complete Streets Guide. Number two is enhancing the community image through things like landscape medians and improved streetscape. Number three is allowing greater flexibility for innovation or alternative designs. An example of that is some of the things Raindance was approved to do. And finally, achieving greater consistency with neighboring jurisdictions. The changes before you now, we originally brought this item to you in June of 2017 and also had a stakeholder meeting at that time. We had a further follow-up meeting with you in July of this year and an additional stakeholder meeting as well. So you've seen the ideas behind these changes a few times, and those ideas remain the same. They've just really been refined over the last year. The full text of the amendments are enclosed in your materials. I will give you a high-level summary of those changes. The first change is making sidewalks mandatory on all streets. Currently, our rural streets do not require sidewalks. Second change is increasing the sidewalk width from 4 to 5 feet and 5 to 6, depending on the roadway type, for increased pedestrian comfort and safety. Number three, developers will have the option to use a detached sidewalk on local streets. This allows room for the tree lawn and street trees and added pedestrian comfort and streetscape improvements. The minor arterials will be required to provide the detached sidewalk. Bike lanes would be required on minor collectors. Garden Drive is an example of a minor collector, which does have a bike lane. However, under current standards, that would not have been required. The inclusion of landscape medians on gateway corridors as the site conditions allow. Curb extensions would be utilized in high pedestrian traffic areas such as around schools and parks. These are the areas where the on-street parking gives way to an extended sidewalk that comes out and gives higher visibility to pedestrians and vehicles seeing those pedestrians. A range of speed limits would be provided for the different street types. Currently, there's a single speed limit for each street, and providing this limit, or this range, provides for greater context sensitivity. So we're somewhere such as Main Street where we want a lower speed limit through the downtown area versus outside of town where it's more of a highway situation. And the last addition is loop lanes. These are kind of private streets that provide access to individual homes on collector streets that volume would not typically allow individual driveways due to safety concerns and vehicles backing onto streets. These are a solution to that problem by taking those movements and putting them on that loop lane. Should town board approve these modifications, staff will administratively make additional minor changes to reflect the changes in the tables by updating the associated text. There will also be some minor modifications to update the technical engineering specifications, which can be reviewed as development friendly, as they will allow greater flexibility based on lower design speeds. An example of this is the centerline radius of roads. When it's a lower design speed, it allows for sharper, lower radius turns, so you can accommodate turns in shorter less amount of land. At their September 5th, 2018 meeting, Planning Commission forwarded to Town Board recommendation of approval of the resolution, amending the design criteria. Should there be any questions, I'm available on those.
Are there any questions for Mr. Hornbeck? Mr. Baker?
For the loop lane, are those are private drives?
Yes, they are private. They'd be
There's no
maintained.
responsibility, there's no snow plowing or anything for the town?
Correct, yeah.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Dr. Jones?
And along those lines, how many, is there a minimum or maximum number of homes you would allow on a loop lane?
There are, I don't know off the top of my head what those numbers are. We've looked at other jurisdictions. Loveland, Fort Collins both have the loop lanes. So they have established standards that we'd be looking at.
Maybe a block, would you say, would that be
Right, they,
equivalent of a block on a
yeah,
regular city street?
I think that's an accurate assessment, yeah.
I apologize, you may have already stated this, but did you show this to the development community or get any comments and feedback from the development community on this?
Yeah, so we had two outreach meetings with them, one last summer and then one more recently this summer, where we invited all the developers that we work with. There is, excuse me, we did receive a letter from one of the consultants, Norris Design, who worked on Rain Dance. They had a number of suggestions that we incorporated. Some of their suggestions, others we didn't feel were appropriate, but that correspondence is in the packet material.
Okay. If there are no further questions or comments, then I would seek a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 2018-85.
Second?
Motion on the floor for Mr. Rennemeyer with a second for Mr. Bennett, approving resolution 2015-85. All in favor vote yes, opposed no.
Can you vote one more time, please?
And the resolution passes unanimously. Moving on to item 4, resolution number 2018-86. A resolution approving an amendment to a master plan for Windshire Park subdivision. Jeff Finice, Director of Loveland Housing Authority, on behalf of the Windsor Housing Authority, is the applicant. Jim Doyle, TB Group, the applicant's representative. This is quasi judicial with Ms. Malone giving presentation.
Thank you, Mayor and Town Board. This item before you would be the third amended master plan to the Windshire subdivision. The master plan is typically done with an annexation, and a master plan was done with the Windshire annexation, and after that time, the master plan has been amended twice. This property is located north of Jacoby Road and south of Guardian Drive, just north of Windshire Drive, and west of 15th Street. The surrounding area is the rest of the Windshire development, primarily single family, and just north of the Windsor Meadows Apartments. The property consists of 8.5 acres, and last year an amendment came through to amend the number of units for what is called Parcel E in the master plan. And there was also an approval for a townhome project as well as a subdivision. The site's zoned residential mixed use. It does allow for a variety of residential uses and neighborhood commercial. So the existing master plan is shown here. Parcel E does include an approval for 58 dwelling units, and that was based on 2.76 persons per unit. The change would be modified for senior units, and that proposal, in examining what would be needed for sewer capacity at 1.2 persons per unit, this would be comparable to that. Again, this is the existing master plan showing 6.8 dwelling units an acre and the 58 units. And this, if approved, this would allow for 123 senior housing units maximum. If the senior units were not built, this parcel would be limited to 60 multifamily units. The proposal is consistent with the comprehensive plan. And it's also consistent with the strategic plan. And while a neighborhood meeting is not part of the master plan process, the applicant did hold a neighborhood meeting prior to submittal of the master plan to gain neighborhood feedback, and they invited all property owners within Windshire. I did attend that meeting, and there were approximately 12 neighbors, and the feedback was all positive on the changes. And I know the applicant would like to present some information about that meeting and the feedback they received. At the September 5th Planning Commission meeting, they recommended that the town board approve the master plan as presented. And I'm happy to answer any questions, or I can turn it over to the applicant now.
Why don't you turn it over to the applicant, and
Okay.
then we'll defer our questions until after we've heard from him.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Town Board. My name is Jim Doyle with the TB Group, Planning and Landscape Architecture firm. And we're just here tonight. We're actually submitting a qualified commercial industrial site plan, so that's an administrative process, but we wanted to come here tonight and just give you a brief overview of what this project is about. And we're excited to be here in Windsor to provide a need. I think that you would agree that it's an important need for Windsor, and we want to try to fill that need. So starting off with the Windshire Senior Housing Campus, it's through the Windsor Housing Authority, and as Carlin mentioned, it's just west of County Road 15, south of Guardian Drive, and then north of Windshire Drive. And excuse me, the Windshire Senior Housing Campus will consist of 96 one-bedroom units and 27 two-bedroom units, and approximately 190 parking stalls. Along the western edge here, next to the existing Windshire neighborhood, we're proposing 33 units. When you look at all these buildings here, these are one-story cottages, and then we have a 3-unit cottage along Windshire Drive, just north of Windshire Drive there. And then there's an additional 90 units that are 2-story that will consist of 2 separate buildings here for the residences, and then common area in the middle. We have a porte cochere that visitors can come to the entrance of the building, and then also we'll have amenities throughout there with meeting spaces and gathering spaces in the back of near the east side of the project, just between 15th Street and the building. That will consist of community gardens, and then we'll also have amenity areas throughout, located at certain nodes around the cottages. We have, the way the buildings are arranged, we have courtyards that look into each other. So one thing, when we met with the Windshire neighborhood, we were met with neighbors that were there to protest. Basically, they were against the they wanted to come thinking what they could do to stop the project, but after we presented it to them, they were asking us what they could do to help get a grassroots effort to get the project moving, and what they could do to help build momentum in their neighborhood. So we're really excited about that, and that's what brought us here today, and we're really excited about what we can do with this project and what we have to offer. Just looking, I'm just going to go through quickly what the previous project consisted of, and the advantages of our project versus the project previously. We had, as I was saying, the previous project had structures and townhomes that were about 12 feet to 20 feet away from the existing residences. With this project, we will be 20 to 30 feet away consistently on that western edge. So that was one thing that the neighbors were really happy about, just that separation. And then we're over 200 feet away to where the two-story buildings will be located. So that was another benefit and plus that the neighbors thought was a great idea. Also, we have less traffic due to the senior living. The senior demographic doesn't typically, a lot of residences don't have a vehicle, or they take alternate transportation, so that's another benefit. You'll have less traffic trips coming and going from the project. We have more green space, less light intrusion. Rather than having 57 separate buildings, we just have the units that we're proposing. And then also less noise due to senior demographic. And I already spoke to the two-story building being 200 feet away. So, and then I'd just like to show a couple images of the cottages. Those will be 1 and 2 bedroom units, and the parking will be facing away from the units, so that will be away from the other existing property also from those residences. Some more images just showing some perspective views. We have some gathering nodes for residents to meet. And then you can see here the courtyard, how they face in upon each other, making for more of a community atmosphere. Some more images there. And then to the two-story building, here's the front of the building when you drive up. We'll have the porte cochere there. And we'll be landscaped with all the wonderful plants that you talked about previously, being low water plants and xeric type plants. And again, it's just a two-story building, so we're limiting the impact there. Some of the gathering spots for the two-story buildings. And that's about it. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to take your questions.
Are there any questions or comments for Mr. Doyle?
I just have one.
Okay, Mr. Bennett.
On the project next to Windsor Meadows with quite a bit of solar paneling for energy, are you looking at, what type of energy efficiencies are you looking at?
That'd be a question for the architect. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not sure if we have anything.
We can wait on that then.
Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Good evening, I'm Jeff Fenice from the Loveland Housing Authority, and we'll be developing this in partnership with the Windsor Housing Authority. So to address that, we don't know exactly yet, but the intent is to put solar on that project, the same as Windsor Meadows. Some of that will be dependent on tax credit, energy tax credits that might be available in other programs. We need to make sure it's cost effective.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Seeing none, then I would seek a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 2018-86.
Second.
Motion on the floor from Mr. Rennemeyer with a second from Dr. Jones approving resolution 2018-86. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. And the resolution passes unanimously. Good luck.
Thank you very much for your support.
Yep, thank you. Item 5 is a public hearing, an amendment to a planned unit development PUD for a sign criteria plan, Rain Dance subdivision, David Nelson Rain Dance Land Company LLC, owner Martin Lind Rain Dance Land Company LLC, the owner's representative, Tom Siegel Water Valley Land Company LLC, the applicant's representative. Quasi judicial action, Ms. Malone will give presentation, but first I would seek a motion to open public hearing.
Madam Mayor, I have moved to open public hearing.
Is there- Motion on the floor from Mr. Rennemeyer with a second for Mr. Bennett to open public hearing. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. Public hearing is now open. Ms. Malone.
Thank you, Mayor and Town Board. This PUD amendment is specifically to add design standards to the existing PUD that was approved in December of 2015. The PUD process is set up to provide flexibility and standards where the standards in the zoning code currently would not allow for flexibility and creativity. The PUD is set up to also include creative community development and design innovation. At the same time, adding in tools to help coordinate land development controls and an overall cohesive development. The site is located north of Crossroads Boulevard and east of County Road 13. It's both north and south of New Liberty Road. The site is zoned PUD with the underlying zoning of residential mixed use and general commercial. These design elements proposed would include, it would help serve as a guideline for signage within the development, both for the developer and as a tool for home builders and future commercial users to have a consistent design theme. And what you see here is a proposed, well, I should say, again, this is a guideline, but they envision an iconic feature here that would be like a ghost sign, so to speak, and just create an identity feature for the development. There are a couple of different categories included. There's also permanent signs. Those shown here are monument signs. These are a little bit different from what would be allowed by code because our code specifically addresses per site, and this would increase some of the numbers of signage as well as size, but mainly so that there's consistent signage throughout the development in the common areas and individual lots. The sign down here is a permanent directional sign. And then this also addresses temporary and directional sales signs. So there'll be some directional here with the individual home builders, and then the home builders will be given this criteria here for their sales, either their trailers or sales models, and then the individual lots. Within the development, they're also proposing signage shown here as a theme throughout their community areas and common spaces. Also included are some sample materials. And then last, they have some potential identity features. These aren't for specific proposal, but these are ideas that they have for creating an identity feature within Raindance. The proposal is consistent with the comprehensive plan. And because this was part of a rezoning application, this also was notified as such. And at the September 5th meeting, the Planning Commission forwarded to the town board a recommendation of approval of the PUD amendment. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, are there any questions? Okay, seeing none from my board, this is a public hearing. This is the opportunity, if there's anybody who wanted to come forward at this time to address the board on this item, now would be the time. Okay, Mr. McCarter.
Madam Mayor, if it's not too much trouble, perhaps we could ask the applicant's representative to step forward just to make certain that he's comfortable with the record that's been made up to this point and to see if he has anything he cares to add.
Okay, can you please come forward?
Good evening. Tom Siegel, Pelican Lakes Point. I agree with the application that's been made here tonight and have no additional information, but I'm available for questions.
Okay. Any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Seeing none, and we have everything we need, I think, for the record, then I would seek a motion to close the public hearing.
I move to close the public hearing.
Second?
Motion on the floor for Mr. Bennett with a second for Mr. Redemeyer to close the public hearing. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. Public hearing is now closed. Moving on to item 6, ordinance number 2018-1571. An ordinance approving amendments to a planned unit development PUD for a sign criteria plan, Raindance subdivision. David Nelson, Raindance Land Company LLC owner. Martin Lind, Raindance Land Company LLC owner's representative, and Tom Siegel, Water Valley Land Company LLC, the applicant's representative. Again, quasi judicial. Ms. Malone, anything further to add?
Nothing further.
Okay, anything further from my board? Seeing none, I would seek a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve ordinance number 2018-1571.
Second.
Motion on the floor from Mr. Redemeyer with a second from Mr. Baker, approving ordinance 2018-1571. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. And the ordinance passes unanimously. Moving on to item 7, a public hearing for a conditional use grant for oil and gas facility, non-producing, in the Southgate subdivision, 4th filing, lots 3 and 4. Martin Lind, Windsor Southgate Development LLC, the owner, Stuart Lowenstein, Water Valley Land Company, and Dave Thorpe, Norris Design, the applicant's representative. Again, quasi judicial. Mr. Hornbeck will be giving a presentation, but first I would seek a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved?
Second.
Motion on the floor for Mr. Redemeyer with a second for Mr. Bennett to open public hearing. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. Public hearing is now open. Mr. Hornbeck.
Thank you. The proposed conditional use grant is for a oil and gas facility which features a office, warehouse, and outdoor storage yard, but does not include any oil extraction activities. Per the definition of the municipal code, this would still qualify as an oil and gas facility. The subject property is zoned general commercial. The general commercial zone does not currently allow for outdoor storage. However, as an oil and gas facility, it could be allowed with the conditional use grant. The proposed storage area is located on the north part of the site, located to the northwest of County Road 17 and Southgate Drive. The storage is proposed on approximately 4.7 acres on Lot 4 and approximately 6.5 acres on Lot 3. Screening will be provided by a combination of the building orientation, screen walls, and fences. The office and warehouse buildings are depicted on the southern portion of Lot 4, adjacent to County Road 17, with the outdoor storage located towards the interior of the site. An 8-foot tall precast concrete wall is proposed adjacent to County Road 17 to provide screening additionally, and an 8-foot screen fence is proposed around the remainder of the site for screening. Example of the screen wall was provided by the applicant, the precast concrete. The example of fencing materials, I do want to note that the code doesn't currently allow the chain link slats shown here, so the applicant will need to work with staff to come up with the appropriate material for that screening. The packet materials include the items expected to be stored in the outdoor storage area with images of each, the environmental control device, meter building, pipe racks, large forklift, motor control centers, gator material, tree ups, transformers, variable frequency drive, spill response trailer, O2 building. The application materials also indicate RV type trailers would be stored there when not in use on sites. The tallest material listed is the 22-foot tall environmental control devices. The municipal code outlines the criteria for approval of a oil and gas conditional use grant. Those are listed in the packet materials, and the application material as presented is in conformance with those requirements. At their September 5th, 2018 meeting, Planning Commission forwarded to Town Board a recommendation of approval of the CUG with the following conditions. Number 1, CUG approval is for outdoor storage as an accessory use to the proposed oil and gas office building and warehouse. Any other outdoor storage shall be subject to the municipal code requirements. Number 2, outdoor storage shall be limited to approximately 4.7 acres on Lot 4 and approximately 6.5 acres on Lot 3. A subdivision modifying property lines between the two lots as anticipated. This CUG and all conditions shall apply to the current lots and any subsequent lots created. Number 4, screening of outdoor storage shall be provided as indicated on the application materials in compliance with the municipal code. Outdoor storage shall be limited to equipment directly related to drilling operation of oil wells, gas wells, and injection wells. No equipment taller than 30 feet shall be stored within the storage yard. Number 7, landscaping shall be provided as required in accordance with the town's landscape standards through the site plan review process. And number 8, campers and recreational vehicles may be stored on site but may not be occupied. That concludes my presentation. Be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Hornbeck? Okay, Mr. Baker?
In regards to the fencing, you said the block fencing will only be on the eastern side along 15. So all the north, south, and west are gonna be that chain link?
Correct.
Or whatever you come to agreement on?
Right, some sort of chain link screening with, the more permanent concrete on the County Road 17 frontage.
Okay, Mr. Redemeyer?
Well, you talked about the chain link fencing. What, according to our current code, what would the alternatives be to the chain link that you said is not permitted? What could we envision as a potential resolution with the applicant?
Under the current code, they could do any other kind of fence that provides solid screening. Just the slats in the chain link is what's not allowed. So a metal fence, for instance.
Neither one of those are permitted though, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? And the applicant approves of the following 8 conditions that were rendered? I see a nod of the head. Okay, there it goes.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Martin Lynn, 1625 Pelican Points. Yeah, the head nod was, yeah, we'll come up with, in fact, I just asked Stuart why that exhibit was on there, because that's not what, they're intending on doing some privacy screening that would be classy. This is a $20 million project, so it's not gonna have screening, and if you know the site, the entrance to Windsor on that area is Road 17, so that's very sensitive to us. And so that'll be the precast concrete. The north property line is our neighbor to the north is Cozy Cow Dairy. And so we interviewed each cow individually, and they don't like the slatted screening either. So actually at the planning commission, the Cozy Cow came and spoke in favor of the owner spoke in favor of our application. So we're fine working with staff on a suitable screening material.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none from my board, again, this is a public hearing. This is the opportunity if anybody wanted to come forward at this time and address the board on this agenda item. Okay, seeing none, and if there are no further comments or questions from my board, I would seek a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
I have a motion on the floor from Dr. Jones. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion on the floor from Dr. Jones with a second from Mr. Renemeyer to close public hearing. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. Public hearing is now closed. Moving on to item 8, a conditional use grant, CUG, for oil and gas facility non-producing in Southgate subdivision. 4th filing, lots 3 and 4. Martin Lind, Windsor Southgate Development, LLC. The owner, Stuart Lowenstein, Water Valley Land Company, and Dave Thorpe Norris Design, applicant's representatives. Quasi-judicial action, Mr. Hornback, anything further?
Nothing further.
Okay, we have everything we need for the record now, Mr. McCarter?
It would appear, Madam Mayor.
Okay, any additional questions or comments from my board? Seeing none, I would seek a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the conditional use grant for oil and gas facility non-producing in the Southgate subdivision, 4th filing, lots 3 and 4.
Second.
Motion on the floor for Mr. Renemeyer, the second for Mr. Bennett to approve the conditional use grant before us this evening. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. And the CUG passes unanimously. Moving on to item D, communications. Communications this evening from our town attorney.
Nothing from me, Madam Mayor, thank you.
Okay, communications from town staff. Mr. Ballstead?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Town Board. I just wanted to call your attention to the site plan information that's in the packet under communications, since this is the first one that is being presented to you this way instead of a presentation. It's in the packet, and if the Town Board has any questions or comments, you can either pass those along to me tonight, or you can forward them on later. But as you can see in the packet, it's for the Ziggy's Coffee Shop out by 7-Eleven in the Ptarmigan Business Park, and the Planning Commission approved a couple of waivers that were under their purview. One regarding the amount of ephes or stucco on the building, and one regarding the offset between the 7-Eleven car wash and the coffee shop itself. So both of those were approved. They're the purview of the Planning Commission. This information is simply in your packet for your information.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Mr. Wagner, anything further? Miss Miller, anything? Okay, Miss Hodling? Chief?
No communication.
Mr. Lucas?
Oh, come on. Every time.
Start the clock.
I just wanted to remind the board that Thursday night at 5:30, the main park playground will open. It will be a park that features many elements such as zip line, rope structures that we do not have currently in our park system. So I'm really looking forward to opening that site to many of the kids in the area. So hope that you can join us for that ribbon cutting. So,
Okay,
thank
thank you
you.
very much. Communications from our town manager, Mr. Hale.
Yes, Your Honor, like you mentioned earlier, I just want to encourage the whole community to celebrate Colorado City in Towns Week. It's all week long. So today we had Employee Appreciation Day, so I think we should probably do that more than once a year, but today we celebrated that. Tomorrow's Public Safety Day. As the mayor said on Wednesday, we're gonna have a tour here at Town Hall, so that'll be from 6 to 7:30. Please come out to that. Eric just took my thunder there. On Thursday, we're going to dedicate a new park, which is great, a new playground structure. You know, we have had some comments on social media about that, and so it's great, I think, to get out and communicate to our residents that this is an adventure park. This is something that is certainly not designed for 2-year-olds in our community. It's for our older kids, but I think it's going to be a nice, great feature, and I hope you can come to that groundbreaking, or the ribbon cutting, rather. Friday is free day at the rec center. I have an annual pass. I'm gonna still go to just feel like I'm getting something for free. Saturday, we have the Be a Tourist in Your Own Town, and then Sundays, Thank a Volunteer. So please celebrate all week long.
What was Saturday again?
It is Be a Tourist in Your Own Town. So this is a chance to just go around, just kind of be a tourist, go shopping. Everybody on the board is required to spend at least $200 cash downtown. So it was part of the mayor's proclamation. So.
Spend money.
That's why I really like the mayor.
Okay, communication from town board members. So with that said, I do want to give my thanks also to all of the town staff, and recognize that we know how hard they all diligently work for us, and for our many citizens. And I know that it had been an extremely kind of rough year. We had a rough period, and everybody kicked in and worked towards a common goal and filled in when and where necessary. So on behalf of myself, and I'm sure my town board would concur, we would like to thank our staff for how hard they work, and know that they are recognized, and we do appreciate them more than once a year, but at least once a year it does remind us who we have, and we are thankful to have them. I also want to remind everybody, though, also that this Saturday is also Coffee with the Mayor from 7 to 9 o'clock at the Rec Center. So I would invite those who also maybe want to participate and have conversation or have questions about what's going on in your town to come to Coffee with the Mayor this Saturday as well. And with that, then I would seek a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor from Mr. Rennemeyer with a second from Mr. Wilson to adjourn. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. And we are adjourned this evening. Thank you.
Dennis.